Hello everyone and welcome to the NSG video series. Today we are very happy to have Professor Lucia Corno with us. Lucia, thanks for joining us today. Professor Lucia Corno is an assistant professor in the Department of Economics and Finance at Cattolica University in Milan and Executive Director of the Laboratory for Effective Anti-Poverty Policies, LEAP. Her research is in development economics with a focus on social norms, ethnic diversity, HIV epidemic and homelessness. Welcome, Professor Corno.
Thank you very much.
Professor, our first question. Could you please tell us about the paper you just presented?
Yeah, so I just presented a paper which is a joint work with Nicole Hildebrand and Alessandra Buena from University of Chicago. So in the paper what we are trying to do is to understand the effect of aggregate income shock on the age of marriages and in particular on child marriages in two regions of the world, Sub-Saharan Africa and India. And where in places, basically in these two regions, what's important is that marriage payments are actually customers. So marriages are regulated by social norms, so these are particularly important when we are thinking about the effect of income shock on child marriages.
Could you highlight some of the results for us?
Yeah, so what we found in the paper, both from a theoretical perspective and from an empirical perspective, is that drought, which is our proxy for income shock, because we are looking at economies that really heavily rely on rain-fed agriculture, have a positive effect on child marriages in Sub-Saharan Africa and a negative effect on child marriages in India. And we believe that these two opposite effects on child marriages in these two regions of the world are driven by the different customs related to marriage payments that are in place in Sub-Saharan Africa and India. Indeed, the prevailing type of payment at marriage in Sub-Saharan Africa is the bride price. Basically, the bride price is a payment made by the groom to the bride's family at marriage. And in India is the dowry, which is the other way around. So dowry is a payment made by the bride towards the groom's family at the time of marriage. So in terms of so when an income shock actually happens in Sub-Saharan Africa, households with the daughter are poorer, and so they are more likely to sell the daughter to a groom to get the bride price payment in exchange. On the other way around, in India, when there is an income shock, they are again poorer, but they are less likely to have money to pay for the dowry. And so this is why in India we actually observe that child marriages are actually lower in these regions.
Thank you, Professor. What are policy implications that we can take away from your research?
Well, so I guess the important policy that we should learn from this project is actually that social norms, which are deeply rooted in developing countries, are extremely important to explain the effect that we can find to a negative income shock. So basically, when we think about policy, it's really to design policy, for example, for decreasing child marriages in these regions, is really important to take into account the social norms that are in places in these two different contexts. Because the norms that are in place can generate a completely different household response to income shocks.
Could you tell us something about why are household composition and marriage choices of interest for economists in developing countries?
Okay, so I believe that we all know that marriages is probably one of the most important decisions in our life. But more seriously, there are economists that actually show that marriages are important determinants of human capital accumulation, for example, of risk-sharing opportunities against productivity shock among spouses and on fertility outcomes, which is probably a long-term outcomes. Marriages are even more important when in places that are regulated by social norms, like in sub-Saharan Africa, in India, or in poor regions of the world. So yeah.
You also undertake research on the HIV epidemic. Can you talk a bit about intervention you did?
Yeah, sure. So, HIV, it's an important topic for economists because this disease is still very widespread in sub-Saharan Africa, and it has huge consequences on the livelihood of the poor. We conduct an experiment in collaboration with the World Bank and with their three co-authors, Martina Bjorkman, Jacob Svensson, and Damien De Valk in Lesotho, in which we provide financial incentive to people to reduce the prevalence of HIV. So basically what we did is we create a system of lotteries and we the people, this was an RCT, a randomized control trial. So people in our treatment group were eligible to participate to this lottery if they were tested negative for sexually transmitted disease every 4 months. So if you are tested negative for a sexually transmitted disease like syphilis at month 0, and you are again tested negative after 4 months, you receive a lottery ticket and you are able to participate to a lottery event within the village and to win an amount of money of the value of $100. So what we basically show is that this incentive reduces HIV prevalence after 24 months by 20% among women. And the idea of putting in place a lottery instead of a standard conditional cash transfer is that we would like to basically capture in our sample individuals who are more risk-lover. So if you are more risk-lover in your everyday life, you are probably also more risk-lover when we talk about sexual behavior. And if you are a risk-lover, then you probably value more a gamble incentive compared to, a certain amount of money for sure.
Thank you very much, Professor. This was Professor Lucia Corno from the Department of Economics and Finance at Cattolica University in Milan. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you.